We tell a story every day with our lives, with our language. We're always telling a story. And so, I guess, motivational thought for the moment. What are you telling a story of what you're living for? Or are you telling a story for what you're living against? Most people, look, especially Southern conservatives, you old men sit around at coffee shops, or not coffee shops. Old men don't do coffee shops. Coffee shops are for yuppies. Old men sit around at diners or places like Jack's Hamburgers, and they eat their special, with the biscuit and the gravy, and we might have to stop for breakfast. Grits and a couple eggs. And they just ruminate, and they talk about the problems that's going on with the world. Well, this is no good, and this is no good, and there's China, and there's politics, and there's taxes, and they just spin around these issues. A few years ago, it was really cool. Mrs. Joni McKenzie, who founded the Center for Relationship Education in Denver, Colorado. And Jonine's story is amazing. I really encourage you to check out Jonine's story. But Jonine's daughter, Lauren Wrightsema, married name Wrightsema now. Lauren is leading Center for Relationship Education. And Abraham, who's behind the camera, by the way, Abraham, you've been there, I think you've been to Denver to the center to their offices for training. Anyway, great people, wonderful content. They work in the area of healthy relationships and teen pregnancy prevention and alcohol, tobacco. It's like Life That Counts, like the nonprofit I lead and Rand founded. And so, but Jonine was invited to be a part of this think tank discussion group with Mathematica on an Office of Population Affairs, OPA, funding project. And Jonine couldn't make the trip. And Jonine said, "Hey, John, will you go for me? Will you go in my place?" I said, "Really, Jonine? I'd be honored. Like, wow, it's like you're bestowing this great honor on me. You mean I can represent you?" And she's like, "Yeah, go. John, you'll do great. You'll be fine." Which then, again, says more about Jonine than it does me. But when I got there, this group of thought leaders, intellectuals, service providers across the country, we're at Mathematica, we're in DC, it's a full day of it, and they begin the day by talking about how can we eliminate rumination around teenagers, because rumination sends you in a downward spiral. It's just down in this downward spiral. And when you ruminate, you eliminate hope from your life. You feed the fear wolf, and you starve the hope wolf. You starve the courage wolf. Mark Divine, to quote, just to Rob from his book Unbeatable Mind. And those are my two big takeaways. Mark, he gets into some Eastern religion stuff. That's not really my cup of tea. But the fear wolf and the courage wolf, those are huge concepts. Which one are you feeding? Which one are you starving? And when I was a kid in Sunday school, they would talk about the spiritual man and the carnal man. Which one are you? Young men, be careful, little eyes, what you see, mouth, what you say, ears, what you hear, hands, what you do, feet, where you go. For the Father up above, he's looking down in love, so be careful, little, and so on and so forth, right? And so I got there, they put the first question on the board, and I said, and it was, they were wanting to teach self-regulation. They're not, how do we get kids, how do we measure, monitor, track? How do we empower? What tools, implements, trainings what can we put in an adolescent youth's toolbox, right? So that they can have to regulate themselves. And I said, well, that's fantastic, but first you've got to address the rumination problem. We've got to acknowledge rumination. We've got to quantifiably measure rumination before we measure regulation. I mean, look at it. Donald Trump calls it fake news. It's ruminating. How big of a frenzy can we get you into? Can we manipulate your emotions so that you live in fear of the sky's falling, right? Well, the sky's not falling, man. During the Biden administration, of all administrations, yes, Life That Counts did not receive one federal dollar during the Biden administration. No, thank you very much. Planned Parenthood and all of the other organizations that advocate that. We'll go there. There's two schools of thought in sexual risk avoidance education. The two schools of thought. There are folks who believe that, you know what, we need to, young people aren't getting all of this stuff at home. That they're not, they come from broken homes where there's been divorce, homes like mine. I never met my biological father growing up, and kids they're not getting checked in. Their mom, their dad, they're not there. They're not seeing their parents work through conflict. They're seeing their one-parent homes live in frustration and turmoil and all of this, that, and the other. And when you And so you have to learn these conflict resolution skills. You have to learn these protective, what does a healthy relationship look like? So if we teach kids what healthy relationships look like, then they're going to avoid teen sex and alcohol, drug abuse, tobacco use, vaping use, abuse. They're going to avoid dating violence and violent relationships. Kids are going to value themselves. They're going to know that they're made in the image, Imago Dei. They're going to know that they're made in the image of God, that they're fearfully and wonderfully made. Right? And some of those things we say, we might not quote chapter and verse, but baby, we say it because it's true. But the other side of the camp in teen pregnancy prevention and sexual risk avoidance education, and Senator Shelnut, thank you so very much for representing our bill that we were trying to get across the plate. But we need to know what sexual risk avoidance education is. If I can know it on this site here where we're loading equipment in the middle of the whole thing after we've been messing with cows and picking up trash, we need to know what SRA is. The other side of the coin, and this is why we got so up in arms last summer with the Alabama Department of Public Health, because the other side of the coin, they steal from this guy, Kinsley or Kensington or something. He was a zoologist from the University of Chicago who basically put out a paper to quote the 90s song or early 2000s song. Kinsley basically said, you and me, baby, we ain't nothing but mammals, so let's do like they do on the Discovery Channel. And he was all of the persuasion, any kind of taboo around human sexuality, any display of human sexuality, any taboos or stigmas should be removed. Think about that. This guy advocated. The other side of the fence advocates for any view of sexual expression to be just go with it, baby. So that's pedophilia, that's bestiality, that's, I'm in Alabama, I can talk about, people marrying their cousins or not, or you know what I'm saying? And they advocate for that. And so the Alabama Department of Public Health last year in this notice of funding opportunity that they put out to local providers like Life That Counts and others, Decisions, Choices, Outcomes, Jason Mann and those guys in South Alabama, the Dream Center in South Alabama with Pastor Joe and Steve Bailey and some of these wonderful people, Ed Bushaw. And Sharon Jennings over in East Alabama, and just so many wonderful people around the state doing this wonderful work to help kids learn how to have healthy things. The Alabama Department of Public Health put out this notice of funding opportunity, NOFO, to, first off, it was a gag order. They wanted us to say, no, the state of Alabama is historically not a sexual, we are not an abstinence-based education state. Yes, we are. It's in the law, baby, 1975. It's right there. The expected social norm for unmarried school-age youth is abstinence. Expected social norm for unmarried school-age youth is abstinence. But this other side, they were targeting 12 to 15-year-olds. 12 to 15-year-olds. In 38 Alabama counties to teach condom demonstrations, and yes, ADPH. I downloaded the content. There were sessions in there advocating to teach kids how to have an abortion. Yes, it was supplemental content, but we also know that once you see, here's the thing. This is why you gotta use your brain and be a researcher. If we can demonstrate that there's a low teen pregnancy rate, or let me rephrase this. If we can say, well, wait, hey, we've got a low teen birth rate. We've got a low teen birth rate. Teen birth does not accurately represent teen pregnancy. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because a live birth precludes abortion, early terminations, different factors. And furthermore, it doesn't say that we've done anything to help kids not engage in teen sex, which is a high-risk behavior. John, why is this stuff so important to you? I was 14 years old at a church camp, 13 or 14 years old, and I'm not going to say the fellow's name because if he ever watches this, I love him. He's awesome. You know, we're at a church camp, youth camp in Green Pond, Alabama. Go Church of God of Prophecy, COP. Yeah, you know me. And we're there, and it's just two young guys talking late at night, and he says, John, he says, you think it's wrong to go, you know, to put your hand up your girlfriend's shirt or to do this? And he escalated all the way. We did this series of Q&A. Do you think it's wrong? Do you think it's wrong? Do you think it's wrong? And then finally he was like, do you think it's wrong if we lay in a bed naked together under cover? And I said, buddy, I said, look, you're flirting with disaster. And I kid you not, the next summer at youth camp, I saw him, he came, hugged, played ball together. You know, that was my jam. 3 days later, his girlfriend arrived with their new baby. When you're 14 years old, you're not ready to be a father. You're not ready to be a mother. There's still so much in front of you. The success sequence is a real thing. Abraham will tag the link on this. Recently, Life That Counts was featured, or not really featured. We got a footnote. I can't say featured. We got an honorable mention in a study that came out on why kids in Alabama believe the American dream is dead. The American dream is not dead. I know that because I'm living it. But when we teach kids to do things in order, and there's an order. John, you're against sex. No, I'm not. I'm not going to make a rude, crass comment out of that. But no, I'm not. I'm just not. Moving on. John, you're a prude. No, I'm not. Keep watching these videos. You'll see that. Well, John, what I am is I want to see kids. I never met my biological father. I grew up in an abusive alcoholic home. I know what it's like to not have food to eat. I know what it's like to not have a place to live. I don't want kids to experience that. That's why I care. So all the stuff that you see as we do these videos, hand to God, straight up. This is a blessing. This is a blessing. There's a success and there's an order of operations.